Sarah, if you'd let me know, please, when we are ready to go.
We are just waiting on Mayor Lehman to connect to the meeting, and then we can commence.
Thank you.
And Chair, I think we have everyone in the meeting now.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. My apologies for those externally joining us. We're a little bit late, and for those that may watch us online after the fact, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Barrie Police Service acknowledges this sacred land has been the site for human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Anishinaabeg Nation. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect, and which. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda that was distributed in advance. Mr. Khan? Ms. Strawn? Those in favor? Any discussion? Thank you. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest with respect to the items in the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting of May the 20th, 2021. Mr. Khan? Anyone else? I haven't got a full screen here, so somebody else may be putting up their hand. Do I have a second?
Mayor Lehman. Yep.
Yeah, Mayor Lehman, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's approved. I'll hand it over to you, Chief, for the fun stuff of the meeting, the recognition of the long service of a number of our members. Chief Greenwood, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It is always a pleasure to acknowledge members of our service on their exemplary work and their contributions to policing. We were unable to host our award ceremony due to the pandemic within the global pandemic. So once again, we are here to acknowledge several of our members. I will start with Kim Burke, and she is joining us virtually. Kim started with the Barrie Police Service in 1989 as a part-time communicator, and several years later, in 1991, she was hired full-time. And over her career, she has worked in communications, property and evidence, and then returned to communications for the last 10 years of her career. While working in communications, Kim worked as a communicator, additionally as a trainer and a mentor to our younger communicators. In 2016, she was interviewed and was successful in the promotional process and became a communications supervisor. Kim was fondly known as the elf that brightened communications during the festive season. Santa's helper, delivering gifts to all the communicators at Christmas, hiding Easter eggs around the station each year for the officers on her platoon. Kim has had the privilege of working in all of our Barrie Police Service homes, whether it was Vespa, Sperling, Bell Farm, and saving the best for last. She was able to retire out of our new headquarters here on Fairview. Kim retired 1 month shy of 32 years of services, and today we are acknowledging her with her 30-year service pin. So congratulations, Kim.
Thank you.
I must say, and I did fail to mention that she wanted to acknowledge the support that she has from her family, Ken, her husband of 42 years, and her 3 children, Sherry, Chantel, and Shane, and her 3 grandchildren. So once again, congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations, Kim, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And we also have Kirsty Chubb, and members of our board have had the opportunity to work with Kirsty in her role in board policy development. But Kirsty started the Barrie Police Service as a co-op student in our investigations branch, completing transcripts. On November of 1999, she was hired as a full-time records clerk. In 2003, Kirsty became the first administrative assistant in human resources for the service. And in her role there, she worked towards her certified human resource professional, which she gained in 2007. At that time, she joined the Planning and Policy Unit a little while after that, and she has been writing policy and procedures for our service. And as I've mentioned already, she does write policy for the board. Kirsty currently holds the designation of Certified Human Labor Resource Leader, and she, when not at work, once again, we acknowledge our family, and she spends time with her two children, Kenzie and Brody. And congratulations, Kirsty, on your 20-year pin with the Barrie Police Service. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kirsty. Well done.
Great.
Well, I think you got a couple more.
I do. Trishana Patterson, she started also with the Barrie Police Service as a co-op student in our criminal investigations branch, and not only doing transcripts, but she worked with the CPIC unit, updating our court dates for our criminal briefs that we prepare within the Barrie Police Service. And in 1999, she became a full-time records clerk, and she has spent time working on CPIC, updating probation orders with conditions, our sexual offenders registry, etc. In 2003, she joined the courts team as one of our first court liaison administrative assistants within our service. She went on to be part of the witness management office with our court liaison officers, and was really instrumental in the way that we handled disclosures. In 2016, for a little change, Trishana accepted the assistant quartermaster's position and was involved in helping our service with our equipment and uniform items for their responsibilities. In 2017, she worked as the administrative assistant in risk management, looking at our response to the community from an officer's driving safety perspective and a use of force perspective. Now she's come full circle, and she's able to bring everything back to our newly named Record and Information Services. And once again, while not at work, Tashana enjoys spending time with her 3 daughters, Laura, Nissa, and Milena. So congratulations, and Tashana will be receiving her 20-year pin. Thank you.
Thank you, Trishana. Congratulations. Chief, back to you.
Thank you very much. now we are on the sworn side of our house, and we have Constable Jamie Westcott. Jamie was born and raised in Nakia, which is a northern community in Ontario. And Jamie, I did look at the map a week or so ago just to make sure that I knew where it was. A fly-in community. Jamie attended Geraldton Composite High School and then attended Canadore College and graduated with an honors in law and security program. Continued learning and received his BA in law from Carleton University as well. Prior to joining policing, Jamie enjoyed a short career in manufacturing where he was a supervisor at a wafer board mill for Weldwood of Canada. He did begin his policing career in 1999 with Peel Regional Police Service, and a couple of years later made Barrie his home and made the great determination to transfer to the Barrie Police Service in 2003. He has enjoyed his career thus far and has made many units within this service, his home, including community services, the training unit, and court services. Some of the highlights of his career are 3 life-saving awards. He was able to attend 2 G8 summits, one in Calgary, one in Huntsville, as part of his role in the public order unit. Jamie is currently assigned to uniform patrol. In addition to those responsibilities, he is a search manager on the emergency support unit also. In his downtime, he enjoys spending time with his family and is an avid outdoorsman. Congratulations, Jamie, on your exemplary award, and he will be receiving his medal directly from me on behalf of the board.
Thank you very much, Constable Westcott. Appreciate your service.
And our last member of the service that will be acknowledged today is Constable Jonathan Watt. He also grew up in the north, and he was from Timmins, Ontario, where he enjoyed many sports and the outdoors. Jonathan graduated from Timmins High with a certificate in French immersion and then went on to attend Laurentian University, where he graduated with an honors BA in Law and Justice in 1998. He was originally hired by the Timmins Police Service and began his career in the beginning of 1999. And during his time in Timmins, he worked in uniform patrol and the drug unit and was a member of the containment team and worked as a scenes of crime officer. He later joined the Barrie Police Service in 2003 and became a member of our K9 unit in 2005, where he spent just over 5 years working with our tactical support unit with his partner, Taser. Jonathan, his dog partner. Jonathan worked in uniform patrol since October of 2010, where he has also performed the roles of scenes of crime officer. Jonathan has been recognized for his actions in 2004 and 2008 for his action in response to 2 significant fires within our city. He received a Chief of Police Award in 2014 in recognition for his perseverance during a lengthy canine track where an offender was eventually arrested. He also received a life-saving award in 2017 for his actions in saving a troubled teenager. Jonathan is passionate about travel and enjoys most of his downtime on Manitoulin Island or on the coast of Ecuador, where he's been working on improving his Spanish language skills. Congratulations, Jonathan, on your exemplary medal, and you will be receiving that from me directly on behalf of the board. Thank you.
Congratulations, Constable Watt, and to all our recipients today. Thank you for your service to the Barrie Police Service. Well done. Chief, I'll hand it over to you to introduce your team with respect to an update on the systemic review overview.
Thank you very much. I am going to turn that over to Inspector Robert Burke and Staff Sergeant Val Gates.
Thank you, Chief. Hopefully everyone can hear us and see us.
We
Thank
thank
you.
you. And my apologies. Victoria is also joining the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Chief. We're going to give you an overview. Really going to take you along the journey, as we like to describe it, of the systemic review of what we have done, where we are, and where we're going. The team that we put together for the systemic review includes a number of other members of the service that have identified that they wanted to help with this task and volunteered for it. So I can't say enough about the interest that was shown in regards to this task and the efforts that members of the service voluntarily put forward to make it a success. I'm also going to add, I'm not going to take credit for the success of this. I'll actually refer to the members of the committee that did it, and certainly going to hand it over to Staff Sergeant Val Gates, who's been a key contributor to this, and also Victoria, who's a key contributor in everything across the service, it seems. But really, I'm going to let them take it away. We'll take you through our journey, and then certainly welcome any queries or questions at the end of it. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So I know that we did provide an update. I think the last one was in January. So we'll still touch on phase 1 and 2 that has already been presented, but we'll go a little more in depth into phase 3 and 4. So as you know, our review started just a little less than a year ago in July of 2020. The goal then really was aimed to identify areas of improvement in regards to sort of our response, our processes, and our engagement with racialized and vulnerable groups. And throughout that review, these are the areas that we kind of tried to evaluate, anywhere from our communication practices to our policies and procedures to our promotional processes. And we also brought in external community partners and members of the community to help us get a really comprehensive view of what it would look like. Sure. So we use multiple channels to collect quantitative and qualitative data. Anything from environmental scans, as mentioned, internal, external focus groups. All of these findings were based on themes. So we looked at it through the lens of our organizational culture, professionalism, diversity, equality, equity, inclusion, and accountability. So here's our chart. So this has been completed in 4 phases. So at the start of the review, we really reached out to members of the service just to sort of gauge where the interest was, how they wanted to get involved. And right away, we set this sort of timeline that we're proud to say we've kind of stuck to quite well. And really, we just wanted to make sure that we would provide the most comprehensive review. And I think we're very much on track. Surprisingly, we're doing very well. So again, phase 1 started July 2020 to September 2020. And really, we just took the time there to set our deliverables and develop the project scope. We also, through research, located the intercultural developmental inventory survey. We thought that might be a great tool for us to measure where we're at as a service in regards to our intercultural competency. So at that time, we did hire an external consultant to come in and deliver that to the leadership team and the board. And that really was the crux of phase 1. So moving to phase 2, we really liked what we were seeing with the IDI. And we saw value in training a couple of our own internal members, so that way we could continue to measure this and watch our growth. So in phase 2, we did train 2 of our own people, and then we administered the IDI to the rest of our members. We were happy with the 76% response rate there, and we will continue to use this tool throughout the next, as we measure the results of this review. We'll continue to use that tool. This is also the phase where we conducted our community safety survey, and we were proud to have over 1,600 responses to that, probably one of our best surveys to date. I think that's because of Victoria. We challenged her. Also in this phase, we started to take a look at our policies and our procedures. We started in on our internal focus groups, and we hired an external consultant to do some of our, we didn't start our external groups in phase 2, but we did hire our consultant. So phase 3 and 4 is really where the bulk of the work was done. So January 2021 to June 2021. This is where we did conduct over 20 internal focus groups. This is where our external focus groups took place. This is where we reviewed all in-house training, 141 procedures. Every single procedure within the Barrie Police Service was reviewed. Multiple surveys. We also looked at recruitment and retention. We looked at our hiring practices. We looked at professional standards. And we are still continuing phase 4. This is the point where we're trying to, and we've pretty much analyzed all the data. It's a matter of getting it into the final report into sort of a easy to read format. So this will continue until we do believe that we will be done Q3, the final report. We're just waiting one small piece of data. And once that comes in, we'll see where that fits within the report, and we'll be able to get that done shortly after we receive that. So this is the part that everybody's interested in, the themes that we are consistently starting to identify. This is just a high-level overview. The report will go into more detail. But we are seeing, both internal and external, that community engagement is a huge piece. We heard over and over from our external focus groups that they want us to humanize the Barrie Police. They want to know who we are. Internally, an evolution of our leadership and culture is recognized, and it's very important to our members. Communication practices, both internally and externally, as mentioned, so there really needs to be a communication plan that we develop or enhance. We do have a really good social media account, that sort of thing, but there's an opportunity to enhance that. Professional development that includes cross-cultural education and engagement and awareness within our community. We do have community partners that are willing to work with us, and there's some great knowledge out there that we need to draw upon. So when we started finding these themes, we started to try and figure out how we could bucket that in a report, make that easier to read. And so what we have done is we've identified these following sort of buckets, so to speak. So they will fall under leadership, which really will cover our internal, external focus groups, some of the IDI data. Organizational culture, we looked at that, both the formal culture, which is developed from our policies and procedures, and then the informal culture clearly was from mostly our surveys and our internal focus group. We did start to see a disconnect between members and the leaders' perceptions. So we felt that it was really important to put a piece in there on that so we can recognize that gap and look to ways to sort of enhance that, make that better for our members. Organizational maturity, that's mostly the IDI results and where we sit on that developmental continuity scale and how we can enhance that. And as I mentioned, we can watch that grow over the next couple of years through education and awareness and that sort of thing. And then organizational reputation, that will include our social media platforms, our external focus groups, our community safety survey, as I mentioned, has 1,600 responses. So it's a great piece of data for us. So that's how the report is going to be presented. So the data is currently being analyzed and reviewed. I think we're pretty much done reviewing it, but just to give you a quick rundown of what that looked like, and I've mentioned most of it already. 141 procedures, over 20 internal focus groups, over 10 external focus groups. Human resources, recruitment, and retention, we looked at 2 years of data in regards to that. In-house training material, we went through 18 presentations that were developed by our own training unit. So this is the material that is delivered to our new recruits and also yearly to every single member within the service, trying to identify, inclusive language, is there any bias in any of those presentations. Our IDI, obviously, we relied on that quite a bit. the internal and external surveys and professional standards, we looked at a 5-year period of complaints. So as mentioned, the final report should be complete in Q3. Plan is to take those recommendations, present that to you, and then we need to continue to measure those, the implementation and the progress of that. We feel pretty good about the report. We do think that when we move forward, it's going to strengthen the values and help us build a fair and progressive culture. Yeah, so basically, you know, there's been a lot of work put into this, and we just want to make sure that we capture everything, the important part that everybody was sharing externally and internally. And I think that's about it. So we're open up to any questions, concerns.
Back to the video.
Any questions for the team? Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Staff Sergeant, and all involved with the report so far and the progress so far. Just if you could share the uptake or the sense of vibe. Oftentimes when a project gets initiated, there can be some hesitancy towards it, the unknown, or sort of an idea as to whether something will actually, you know, find its legs and be, you know, carried out to fruition. And I'm just curious if you can describe how members of the service, the community, et cetera, have sort of, you can see by the number of reports that have done, the amount of activity that you've done, but in terms of the vibe or the engagement from the community, has that grown from beginning till today?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's very important to everybody involved to, you know, we heard over and over again that we want to make sure that this report is seen through to the end, and that's why we've taken so much time to make sure we're capturing everything. You know, we've taken that quite personally, but the participation has, like the IDI was 76%. We sent out, there was a bit of, there were a lot of surveys going out, but we did have a good response rate with every survey, and I think everyone appreciates that the chief, you know, the chief had started this, and it signals to them that this is a priority for her and for the Police Services Board. So I would say that participation levels indicate that, you know, there's some faith that you know, we're making it a priority, and I don't think we've had too much pushback at all. I think it's.
No, I can, and I'll just add, from the internal focus groups, the actual interest, I think the real barometer was the actual interest in participating in the internal focus groups. And that actually is in addition to the request for the one-on-one debriefs for members that completed the IDI survey and actually took part in that, and Victoria was trained in that, and the number of those interactive debriefs that we can that we actually saw that people participated in. I guess if you want to give a barometer for buy-in, and this is from a Staff Sergeant Gates point of view, and I won't put words in her mouth, but as we went through the systemic review, Staff Sergeant Gates would actually note to myself how, being involved in this systemic review, how my views and approaches have changed through it. So that's just one example. Now, I was intimately involved with the review, but that's just one example of, once the conversation starts, where if you have an open mind, you actually can change your approach going forward, considering all the information and data that's gathered. That's just one example. I know Staff Sergeant Gates would mention it to me on a regular basis, that I was really being affected by his review, just in my approach and how I was dealing with different issues. So we were actually, you know, on top of the external participation, that's where we were really satisfied actually with the input that we gathered. Oh.
Arif, you're on mute.
Yeah, there's that line that goes across the microphone. That's a bit of a giveaway. Chair, thank you. I just wanted to hear this side separate from the words in the report, separate from the graphics on the screen. I really wanted to hear from those who are participating in this and get the board and the public to hear, obviously, the level of enthusiasm and commitment and passion that's going into this. I've only had a brief opportunity to see what's going on behind the scenes, but obviously the board has identified this as a priority. The chief has identified this as a priority, and I think really we as a board and as a service have an opportunity here to really follow through on this one and see this through and build that relationship with members of the service, build that relationship with members of the public, etc., who in past through society, not just here in Barrie, but through society, have sort of seen attempts that never really made it. And so I'm really proud to read this, to see this report. I'm really thankful to see this progress report, and just whatever we can do to continue to give this team all the support that they need. I think they're doing some incredible work, and I think our community is going to really benefit from it. So I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you, Mr. Convent. Mayor Lehman.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Mr. Chair, and building on what Arp just had to say, I want to thank the chief for making this priority, leadership team, and especially the project team. Your enthusiasm's obvious. Rob, it was great to hear the impact of just being part of the process. I think that's awesome. The one comment I would just make right now at this point in the project is I do believe this is something that can have a very positive impact internally and externally. And one of the sort of keys to success will be the authenticity with which its findings are reported. And that's really a communications challenge that comes at this point in a project whenever you're dealing with potentially sensitive issues. It's often tough to find the way to tell the unvarnished truth in public and to the people for whom it affects, especially. So both the internal and external audience are often in our mind as we're writing the words. And I just wanted to encourage you as mayor and as a member of the board to be very authentic in the way we communicate these things. I know you will. I have no question that the report will be 1000% accurate, but there is always the choice in communicating things as to how we present the issues that have surfaced and our proposed solutions. And I think the report will be most effective to us, to the service, to the public, if it has that real ring of authenticity as somebody reads it. So it's just a comment at this point in the process. But again, I really appreciate the work that's been done. And the fact that you're getting this engagement tells me that there's going to be a wealth of very valuable information in it. So thanks for that.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, my personal comments too, that, this was addressed as a priority, right in the middle of the pandemic last July, and to be at this point in time, at this stage of the review, and to have the involvement that we've had in the review, I think is a tremendous feat. So I know I speak for the board. We look forward to an update, and thank you for a job well done.
Thank you very much.
Chief, I think Inspector Johnston and Staff Sergeant Gravel are aboard. If you can just introduce them with respect to the missing persons review.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to follow up on the comments that the board have made in regards to systemic review, it's just an opportunity to thank members of the service, members of their community, and the review team on their perseverance and their dedication to looking at the root cause of or look at some of the root issues within our service, within our community, and how it's very much connected to our strategic plan and the city's community and safety and well-being plan. In regards to the next item on our agenda for the Police Services Board, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Staff Sergeant Rob Gravel. Many members of the board would not have the opportunity to engage with the staff sergeant but would like to introduce him, and then you will see the quality of his work. Rob started his policing career in July of 1990 with the Peel Regional Police Service and worked in a variety of specialty areas such as the robbery unit, child abuse and sexual assault unit, homicide, intelligence, and Asian organized crime, along with a secondment in a joint task force at the Provincial Biker Enforcement Unit. After his time with Peel, he did join the Barrie Police Service in 2007 and has also worked in a variety of different areas with a strong focus on criminal investigation and our planning, research, and policy development within our service. In 2017, he was promoted to the rank of Staff Sergeant and was seconded to the Minister of Solicitor General's office in the Public Safety Division as the Serial Predator Crime Investigator Coordinator with the Provincial Major Case Management Unit. He has forged a multitude of relationships during his tenure with the ministry and sits on the executive board for the Ontario Homicide Investigators Association, along with the Sexual Assault Investigators Association of Ontario. Rob has completed his, or just about to be completed, his secondment with the ministry, and he will be returning to our service on June 21st. And I would like to note that he was one of the first officers to assist with the Justin Ebsen report in the review of the missing persons report that is going to be presented today. So I will pass it on to Inspector Rich Johnson and Staff Sergeant Rob Gravel, and Rob will be sharing his screen with a presentation. The board has a copy of a report in their binders. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And again, the Chief was just speaking about Staff Sergeant Gravel. This is in our area what we call a subject matter expert. Certainly a very robust skill set that Rob brings to the table. He'll be addressing and presenting on the missing persons investigations review by Justice Epstein. And this was prompted by the tragic deaths of 8 people killed by Bruce McArthur over a 7-year period. Rob has reviewed this in depth, and I think you'll find beyond the questions you're probably going to have very enlightening, just in terms of there was over 151 recommendations. So this was not a brief report, and certainly some valuable insights to alter how we do what we do. So Rob, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Inspector Rich Johnson, and thank you, Chief Kimberly Greenwood, and members of the board. Thank you for having me here. Can everybody hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Rob. I'm just going to share my screen now and bring up the presentation. Okay, can everybody see the first slide in Missing and Missed?
We can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so yes, once again, thanks for that introduction. Obviously, I'm going to take you through sort of a high-level overview of the Epstein report. As mentioned, it's considerable in length. It's 1,100 page document in review of essentially the the Bruce McArthur investigation, and obviously the 8 victims that went missing from the Church and Wellesley area and other geographical areas in the GTA, and obviously affected the LGBTQ community. So there was a 7 reign of terror, starting with Mr. Nafrathanam in 2010, followed shortly thereafter by the disappearance of Mr. Fawzi in Peel region, and then all the way through to 2017 when Mr. Kinsman went missing. And there was a fairly huge uproar in the community wanting some answers from the policing community. So I'll take you sort of step by step. As mentioned, there were 151 recommendations. So I'll try to go through not each recommendation, but sort of give you a breakdown of some of the critical areas that have been identified in this report. I do have sort of a slight sort of a wholesome understanding of this report, given my position at the Ministry of Solicitor General. I took up the position in September of 2017. As the SPCIC, the Serial Predator Crime Investigations Coordinator. I know it's quite the handle, but I've been in that position ever since. My last day is actually probably today or tomorrow, and then I'll be coming back to BPS starting Monday morning, early in the morning, I have to say. So I will be, as I said, going through this. So if I can break it down, the 151 recommendations, there really are sort of 9 critical areas that are spoken to and that I'd like to highlight. And the first, I guess, and foremost, and I think the ones that obviously you'll be very interested in will be the civilian oversight with respect to this review. Then we'll dive in a little bit into major case management and technology. The VI-class and SPCIC notifications, which are requirements and mandated in our province. The missing persons investigations themselves and sort of the priority and the risk associated to missing person investigations. And then specific investigative issues that were sort of identified, unidentified human remains, supervision, training, education, bias, discrimination, and then of course the broader community engagement. So again, I'm not going to go through the entire document itself, but if you look at, Project Houston, which started in 2012, which again was looking at the first missing person, Mr. Navaratnam, you'll see that they identified some tunnel vision again, which obviously has been identified before for police in the Kaufman report and the wrongful conviction of Guy Paul Morin. So they essentially, were going with a theory of cannibalism theory and identified an offender by the name of Mr. James Brutton and received that information from Switzerland. So that was sort of their identified at tunnel vision. And it's, again, been identified in many, many cases. So that was brought to light once more. The improper use of the ministry software and the MCM methodology and principles. I'll highlight that a little bit more, and I think Justice Epstein's language that speaks to that is very specific, and I have some comments about that. And then, of course, the secrecy around the investigation and how that fueled the perception within the community of the police and what they were doing about the disappearances of these 8 individuals. I'll touch lightly on some of the trigger notifications on Mr. Fosley's disappearance in Peel Region in 2011. That ultimately, didn't make that connection between those 2 jurisdictions, Peel Region and the Toronto Police Service. And then, of course, the importance of tech review in a sort of timely manner. Again, a failed connection there where an email sort of handle for the offender, Mr. Bruce MacArthur, when he had the Silver Fox 51 and Silver Fox Toronto identified, and those connections unfortunately weren't made until 7 months later due to the sort of the lack and then the sort of the efficiency, I guess, of getting that tech review in place. So anyways, I'll dive into a little bit of those areas as we sort of progress through the slides. So first, and I guess the first 11 recommendations of this report really focus on the civilian oversight and the importance of civilian oversight, obviously in policing, and the importance of the Police Services Board. I'm sure you're all aware that the Section 31(4) of our Police Services Act, as it stands currently, basically states that the board shall not direct the chief of police with respect to specific operational decisions or with respect to the day-to-day operations of a police force. I can tell you that language will probably be, adjusted, I would think, in the upcoming Community and Safeties Act of 2019, which is yet to be, adopted. But I know that obviously being part of the ministry that we are working very diligently on all aspects of that Community Safeties Act. So now I want to sort of bring your attention to the comments that were made by Justice Epstein, and really these are sort of enhanced by previous reports. If you look at Justice Morden's report from the G20 and Justice Linden's report from the Ippewash inquiry, both of them made mention of the importance of that communication piece between the Police Services Board and the chiefs of police and senior management, to the point where there was critical areas or critical points that were highlighted, and I think are very significant and probably should be implemented. Again, these are just sort of my thoughts and recommendations, but implemented as policy, updated policy points. So again, we look at a policing operation, event, or organizationally significant issues requiring command level approval. These are all sort of critical points at which the chief of police or senior management should be communicating with the Police Services Board as it relates to operational matters. Operations that may have a material impact or relationship with the servicing of marginalized and vulnerable communities. Operations that impact in a material way on services reputation and its effectiveness, and operational matters, even ones involving individual cases if they raise questions of public policy, internal audits or anomalous documents that identify systemic issues within the service, and complaints against individual officers in the service, and the findings about discrimination by other tribunals that raise systemic issues within the service. So I thought those were sort of important to highlight to the board. And as well, I'll just read a comment that was made by Justice Morden, again, previous to Justice Epstein's recommendation, that basically says, it is sometimes said that in simple and general terms, the policies are for the board and the operations are for the chief of police, and that the two must always be kept separate. Apart from being impossible to apply in their own terms, this statement does not represent what the statute provides. So again, I will just surmise this slide by basically saying that we need to sort of establish those policies, I believe, and then establish some training about communication of our middle management level to senior management level, again, ultimately to the deputy chief and chief to this police board. And if I move to the next slide, which, and I like to sort of read this because I believe it sort of encapsulates the flavor best by Justice Epstein, by basically saying a board's ability to ask questions, make recommendations, or provide advice or suggestions is important to ensure that it's fully informed about ongoing, complete operational matters relevant to its mandate. I say that for several reasons. Policy and operations are not watertight compartments. Operational matters can reveal the need for new and revised policies, particularly if policing is, as it should be, evidence-based and is subject to continuous improvement. So again, I put a small caveat there that stay tuned for the Community Safeties and Policing Act of 2019 and the revisions that will be sort of forthcoming with that in respect to this. Okay, next is sort of I'll highlight just major case management. And again, this is obviously my area of expertise. And I can tell you that as it relates to missing persons, obviously now we're going to go back to, this was first implemented and mandated, and we're the only province in Canada where it is legislated and mandated in our Police Services Act. It was since 2005, so we've been living with this requirement and legislation for about 16 years now. And in 2013, I can tell you that there was an all chiefs bulletin that was sent out from the ministry advising all police services that it would be best practice for missing persons that have yet to ascertain whether foul play was involved and unaccounted for to sort of be placed on the ministry approved software, which is PowerCase, which is what we use to manage our designated offenses. And there's 7 of those designated offenses, 7+1. As well as discretionary offenses. Again, that requirement or that best practice in which the an all chiefs bulletin was put out in 2013 and was obviously in play when Project Houston and Project Prism took place for Toronto, was never sort of properly adopted. And again, this was followed up by legislation in the review of the MCM manual in 2017. And for those of the members of the board who are not aware, that manual is revised every 4 years. And I can tell you right now that there is a deep dive into that manual, and you will see a lot of reviews being done to that manual in the next sort of presentation, which is expected at the end of this year. And I've sort of been heavily involved in sort of the reinterpretation and reorganization of that manual. Also, and you'll see that the language here is very specific, and I think it is intended to be specific. When Justice Epstein talks about the compliancy and the provisional adequacy standards with respect to major cases and major case management and the use of the software, and she's specific here by saying for its intended purpose. It's very important to note that although maybe some services in the province are using the software, they're not using it as it was intended to be used, so as an investigative tool and not a data dumping tool. And that's sort of an important identifier in this report and an important message to get to all the police services. So with this said, I can tell you again, having worked in the MCM unit, that obviously, we were privy to the inspection report that was conducted by the ministry in 2018, looking at data from 2016. And as a whole, as a provincial whole, we didn't score very well. Our report card wasn't fantastic, but there were many recommendations that were made to the police chiefs and the police services board, which they were followed up by recommendations to address potentially any deficiencies. And I can tell you that the MCM unit will be following up once the pandemic restrictions ease with each and every one of the 47 police services in Ontario to see whether or not there's any sort of deficiencies that can be addressed and how can we sort of help you and assist you in sort of moving past that. So just to let you know that that's sort of forthcoming. Again, if we take our minds to when this was made public in April of this year, and the sort of response by the Toronto Police Service, Acting Chief Raymer, in his comments, basically regrets the lack of resources committed to MCM and the position that officers were placed in. And obviously, they are now committed to adequately sourcing and training all the officers. I can tell you that Acting Chief Superintendent Pauline Gray is leading that charge over at Toronto and ensuring that these 151 recommendations will be sort of addressed in a timely manner. So that, in essence, is the highlights of MCM and some of the areas that I wanted to sort of bring to the attention of the board. And I'll move to the next slide, which is specific or was specific to my position as the SPCIC. And again, Justice Epstein does speak about this, at length. And I would like just to make the comment again, because I was keeping stats for the last 4 years. When I first started as the SPCIC, I was probably receiving about 200 notifications provincially for serial predatory behavior. Last year I received 670, and this year I'm sure that we will cusp close to 1,000 notifications. That could be obviously viewed as good or bad, but the education piece is getting out to the members, to the services. As my role, I did attend every police service to ensure that that message was clear. I attended all the MCM courses, sexual assault courses, the homicide courses, again, to ensure that messaging was clear. Is there more work to be done? Yes, absolutely. As you can look at these next two slides, you'll see that some of the services have processes established by which those notifications are coming in and sort of on a regular basis, but there's still some services out there that are still lacking. So does that require a more robust routine order or procedural update? And that may be the case. I guess I'm running out of time a little bit. So I will go to the next slide. Again, just wanted to bring to your attention just some of the other elements, the risk element for sure, and the fact that these missing persons needed to be addressed specifically by people that had the proper KSAs. And in this vein, I'll speak to that a little bit on my last slide. Again, we all know now that the Toronto Police Service has got a dedicated unit for missing persons, so that we're not working in silos, and that we have that sort of victim-centric approach that's so important in these investigations. Again, so talking about, sorry, just one more comment about the risk. Talking about the risk, just wanted to make sure that there's a provincial risk assessment and a working group that is looking at a provincial risk assessment component for this. Investigative issues, I won't touch on too much, and unidentified human remains. They still, obviously, the messaging here is just making sure that we have proper supervision and people with the proper KSAs to have oversight and ensure that we're compliant with these areas and done in a timely manner. And again, this speaks about supervision, training, and the recruitment and sort of involvement of special constables and civilians in these areas. So what is the Barrie Police doing? Right now, I can tell you yesterday, myself and Inspector Rich Johnson attended the OPP, and we sat down with them to look at one of their business solutions to see whether or not that would fit in within our environment here at the Barrie Police Service. As far as analytical data for compliancy standards, so that's one of the things that we're looking at. Kirsty Chubb was here, and we're working diligently with reviewing all our policies and procedures in relation to this report, and as well as the policies for the board. So I'm sorry for going over my time period, but I welcome any questions at this point.
Well, it's clear, Staff Sergeant, that you are, in fact, a leader in this issue, and that's always makes our police service proud when our crew goes out and about. So well done. Are there any questions from the board for Staff Sergeant Greba? Mr. Khan.
Chair, I think Lynn Strawn had her hand up ahead of me. I don't know if you want to go ahead.
Lynn Strawn? Sorry, I can't see everybody on. I got my screen right now. There we go.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. Just a question around the next steps in the review of the policies. Is there overlap with some of the review that we've done for the systemic review, and can we use some of what the work that we've already completed there to feed into this process? Are there any synergies?
I will say that there is an opportunity to utilize some of the synergies, but we will be looking at it through a different lens, from an investigative lens. It doesn't take away from the community engagement piece or the cultural sensitivities. So we will look at it from an additional lens, but we will make use of the work that we've done already.
Okay, thank you. And also, just in terms of timeline, there is a lot of work to be done. There's a number of recommendations. Will we put a project plan in place? Like, when can we expect these steps to be taken, and how will the board know when tasks have been completed and what progress is being made?
A very good question. From a service perspective, we are reminded that the recommendations were specifically directed to the Toronto Police Service, but we understand lessons learned from other services can be applied to our own service. And this will be part of a review, and there will be a working group with a report to the board at the conclusion of the recommendations that are specific to the Barrie Police Service.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Khan, please.
Thanks, Chair. Through you, Chief. First of all, thank you very much for the report. It's in depth. I think we could go an hour here as well, Chair. I do note a number of interesting similarities that are between this report and what the members of the Systemic Review team have been working on within terms of communication, public engagement, community group engagement, etc. So I look forward to what comes out of this, and I anticipate that we will see some, I don't want to say blurring, but some blending and some joint opportunities going forward. And I guess my question to the staff sergeant is, what's your schedule looking like on Monday? Because I'd certainly love to learn more about where you are and where this could go offline from an open board meeting here as well.
Thank you for that comment. I will be sitting at the desk at 4:30 in the morning on platoon, but I'm sure I will be engaged further with Inspector Rich Johnson and the chief on this regard. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none again, Staff Sergeant, thank you very much. We obviously done some great work, but we do look forward to seeing you Monday. I don't think many of us will see you at 4:30, but perhaps we'll see you shortly thereafter. So thank you very much for your leadership in this area. Well done.
Thank you.
Moving on, there are two items in today's consent agenda. A number of staff acknowledgements. It's always great to see public complaints. Would anyone like either of those items pulled and/or questions or comments? Not seeing any. A motion to receive consent agendas. Mr. Khan, Mayor Lehman. Seeing no discussion, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you. Chief, I think Staff Sergeant Richter and Victoria Inspector Burke are going to give us an update on the finalization of our 2020 annual report. Chief?
Yes, they are. Thank you very much. And I know the board had the opportunity of a very extensive review last month. So I'm going to pass it over to the team so they can provide a condensed version of the annual report. As a spectacular report with a printed version and a interactive version that will be available for members of the public and our own membership. Over to you, Inspector Burke. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief. We'll just share the screen. We're not going to take up too much time just because we did have that opportunity last meeting. What we're going to do is give you the highlights of the finished product. I can say that I do have a greater appreciation for print and copy editors after going through this process. So this, I think, is about the 37th edition of the actual annual report. Certainly, I'm going to pass it over to the two main drivers behind this, Staff Sergeant Richter and Victoria. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the input of Jeanette Mays from our corporate communications. So yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Staff Sergeant Richter. With me today is the team that has been working on completing the 2020 annual report. This includes Inspector Burke, Victoria, our strategic planner, and Jeanette from corporate communications. Today, we will be providing an overview of the 2020 annual report and its online capability. The 2020 annual report is based on the framework applied in creating last year's annual report. The document serves as a historical record of the achievements, improvements, and ongoing initiatives that correspond with the Barrie Police Service strategic plan. It's also designed as its sister publication. The 2020 annual report will serve as a template for the years ahead in both print format and the new interactive online format. Accessible through QR codes within the annual report or by going to the website bpsannualreport.ca, the printed report is completed with a live web version. Of note, the page is currently password protected until it's released to the public by authorization. The online component is designed as a supplement to the print material and helps bring the annual report to new life. It is an opportunity to strengthen our community engagement and collaboration. In preparation for the launch and to help highlight the online features, we have a short video that is a part of our communication strategy. Demonstrated in the video, the report has come to new life with video content, photo galleries, resource and report links, along with the ability to make live updates when new resources are available, navigational icons, analytics such as the 2020 Community Safety Survey findings. The online presence also offers the Barrie Police Service the opportunity to set new benchmarks for future enhancements. We will be able to track new and returning site visitors, duration of page views, and more through the digital environment. Additionally, this serves as a template for future annual reports and the online version of the 2020 to 2022 strategic plan. The 2020 annual report will be distributed in print and in digital formats. A limited quantity will be printed and distributed for historical record. The public focus is on the digital distribution of the 2020 annual report. This will increase the accessibility of the report and strengthen our engagement and communication with the community. Regarding our communication strategy, the team has prepared internal and external email campaigns, a press release, and updates for the barriepolice.ca website. Our social media strategy includes organic posts, which are free and do not have a paid promotion tied to them. It also includes boosted posts, which are paid for and will connect new audiences with the Barrie Police Service. The videos, posts, key messages, and hashtags are designed to build buzz around the report's new form of accessibility. Once the annual report is given authorization to be released, please explore and experience it come to life. The public is encouraged to visit bpsannualreport.ca to review and learn about our achievements from the last year. Also, this will encourage further exploring of the services offered by the Barrie Police Service. It's an opportunity for the public to understand the ongoing efforts and initiatives of the Barrie Police Service and the provisions of our professional, accountable, and sustainable police services. Thank you for your time today.
Are there any questions of the team? Well, I have a comment and one question. Wow, that's a first-class document, folks. Job well done. And I have a question. I'll flip it back to you, Mayor Lehman, in a minute. Will we? I assume we'll be able to track some data as to the number of visits and/or where they may have gone, or what they may have opened, what may have been of interest, what the no one seemed to read, et cetera, et cetera. Will that be part of the process once we've posted online?
Thanks, Chair, for the question. Yes, we're going to expand. We actually included in our annual report some of our BPS website data statistics, and we're certainly going to expand that with our annual report and build that in addition to responses from our community safety survey in regards to interest and where the visits are taking people. And that we will certainly build on that for next year's annual report. And that is the idea of we call it the living document, the web-based document, and we'll certainly take advantage of the technology to track that.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Then Mr. Khan.
Sorry about that. No question, just a comment that I'm really glad to see we're trying to seek new audiences through the distribution methods. One of the biggest challenges in our city is that we often speak to the same group of people, and it's a relatively small group of people within our much larger and fast growing population. Social media, Facebook promotion, and so forth are great new ways to access that population. So really appreciate that, and my compliments as well. And what looks like a great content. I'm looking forward to going through it.
Thank you.
Mr. Khan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Inspector and your team, you certainly set an incredible bar when you released the, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to as the sister document, Staff Sergeant Richter, whether it was a month or so ago. Incredible opportunity to engage and use technology to the benefit. So I agree, Mayor Lehman, you'll certainly be attracting a wider scope of audience, and I think you really will get that engagement and data, right? I mean, the opportunity to see where people are spending the most time in the living document, where they're focusing, what they're clicking on, all those different things. I've been given a crash course in that in the last 2 years with my day work. And I really see what the future could hold, and it looks like you've really, sort of jumped on that opportunity to engage. So congratulations, thank you, and I also look forward to taking a tour and actively participating in that document. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Ms. Straw, please.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, not related to the annual report, but Councillor Thompson is trying to re-enter the meeting. I don't know if somebody can help him do that administratively. He just sent me a text message.
I'll work on that.
Thank you.
Sarah, if you could, please. Are there any other questions or comments to the team? Again, well done. Congratulations on a great report, and we look forward to a follow-up. So thank you, team. Over to you, Chief, for your monthly update, please.
Thank you very much. Sarah will be sharing the screen for everybody, and I am very cognizant of the time left for our board meeting, so I will very quickly go through our update, but just will focus on just a few of the slides. In regards to our pandemic response in our community, as we have gone to the reopening, we've seen a sense of hope in our community. We're still focusing in our engagement and education, but I can say that our COVID-related calls for service and participation in demonstration within our community, we have seen a decrease in that. And we did not have a demonstration last weekend. In regards to our enforcement of the Quarantine Act, once again, I'm pleased to say that people are complying once they have returned to our country. From an internal perspective, we continue to do very well in that area, and we have over 80% of our membership have received their first dose, and over a third of our service have received their second doses. The slide that illustrates our computer-aided dispatch calls for service, it's just a highlight that we have provided. And Sarah, if you could go to the next slide, please. I don't know if it's frozen. This is just a highlight of the calls that we do respond to. We have seen it as an organization, so we receive many calls into our service, just under 15,000. We've seen an increase in our calls for service in the month of May, and I always do focus in on our mental health calls and our ability to respond with our partners in the community. The next slide is just the highlight of some of the calls for service that we responded to that were of interest. I won't go through each of these calls, but it is available on our website, this PowerPoint presentation. After the meeting, people can have a view of that along with members of our board. I will draw our attention to our public safety warning. Our emergency first responders, ourselves, paramedic and fire and emergency services, and our frontline workers have seen an increase in our calls for service involving overdoses. And the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit did provide a press release to our community indicating that paramedics and impact to our hospital as a result of the overdose. From a policing perspective, we're conducting further investigation looking at the supply chain and advising the community that we believe that there is a bad batch of fentanyl in our community, and we have done some significant investigations, and I will speak to one of those shortly. Next slide. In regards to the community safety and well-being plan for the city of Barrie and our evidence-based policing new initiative, we are focusing in on a community safety and well-being team. So our team is a joint effort between our community services area and our community response unit, and it will be evidence-based driven in regards to our responses into every area across our city where there is an elevated harm or elevated disorder in our communities. Sergeant Fitzgerald and our new community safety and well-being officer, Constable Brooks, will be the main contacts for this initiative. So we have dedicated 2 teams for this pilot project over the summer months, and we will observe the impact and evaluate the impact on our calls for service and the overall well-being for our community on this initiative. Next slide. We participated or a multi-unit response within the Barrie Police Service in the execution of an investigation and final search warrant. This initiative was led by our drug enforcement unit, and we located a quantity of cocaine, fentanyl, Canadian currency, and a conducted energy weapon was seized, and we were able to arrest a local resident with multiple criminal code and drug-related offenses that are listed there, and we will continue to focus our attentions on the distribution of illicit drugs in our community. The highlights, just very briefly, many of our board members participated in our virtual graduation ceremony and swearing in of our recruits that are now our rookies in our organization on May the 26th. They have been deployed and are immersing themselves very quickly into response in our community. On the 31st of May, I had the opportunity to present at a public safety, crime prevention, and a policing committee on the National Police leadership role and competencies, respecting support from the Public Safety Minister Blair on renewing the leadership competency framework for policing to address the needs in our community. We also, the month of June, we worked with our Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee and Barrie Pride, and we recognized Pride with the flying of the flag at the Barrie Police Service flagpole at the back of headquarters. Also, the month of June is Seniors Month, and we have a series, or have completed some, but then have a series of things focused in on keeping our seniors safe within our community. And the last item on this slide, I'd like to recognize Staff Sergeant Val Gates of our service. She has been recognized not only locally in the province of Ontario, but internationally, and receiving an award of excellence in performance by the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement and the International Association of Women Enforcement. It is through her dedication and leadership. Val has made extensive contributions to policing and initiatives and will work tirelessly to pursue grants in excess of $2 million. And she has worked collaboratively with community partners in regards to victims of sexual violence, her work on the Canadian framework for intimate or sexual violence, her apps that she has developed to support evidence-based approaches in our community, along with her lead role in the development of the Child Advocacy Center in Barrie, and several projects to assist victims of human trafficking. So we would like to acknowledge her outstanding work in relationship building, development, and implementation of an investigative and innovative programs. So thank you very much for your dedication and passion, and she will be acknowledged internationally for her work. So congratulations, Staff Gates. And that is the conclusion of the Chief's update.
Thank you, Chief, and I know we extend our congratulations to Staff Sergeant Gates. She is a true leader, and it's great that others recognize that. So, any questions from the board for the Chief, or community concerns to be raised for the Chief's consideration? Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I know there was an internal message through the board of some of the concerns raised at council with the noise and the speed on Lakeshore. And I just wanted to let the public know that it has been added to the traffic units list and will be monitored.
Ms. Strawn, I think you had your hand up. See, Mr. Khan, please.
Yeah, just further to Councillor Thompson, just wanted to acknowledge the service's continued excellent work in the traffic unit. Obviously, they're getting their work cut out for them, and I believe the public certainly appreciates certainly the Big Bay Point recent stops and suspensions due to high speed, etc. So I think it's being very well received by the public, and I wanted to just pass that on. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Khan. Any other questions or comments for the Chief? Seeing none, our next board meeting is September the 16th, but between then and now, I invite the public. We will be receiving deputations with respect to our budget virtually the evening of August the 3rd. So that is available for those that wish to speak to the board with respect to the 2022 budget process. A motion to adjourn today's meeting. Mr. Khan?
I'll second it, Chair.
Seconded, Robert. Councillor Thompson? Assume everyone's in favor. I want to thank everyone for, again, once some magnificent presentations made, and obviously a clear, significant amount of time that went into them. So I want to thank all those and wish everyone well. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Thank you.